Hey, let's talk about Steel Strength and Artifact card I just revealed. If you missed the first video, it explains what the card does, how you can use it, and what you need to consider before playing it. What I've done for this video, the second video, is I've gathered 6 other gamers who also play Artifact to get their opinion of this card, Steel Strength, and also to compare this card with other green cards along with me. So let me introduce everyone. I am dpmlicious Singji. My main games are Artifact and Dota 2. I hope to become a professional Artifact gamer, so I'm gonna train hard and hopefully be able to join a team. I was a freelance project manager and consultant, and I also am a pet sitter. Love dogs and cats. So I hope to make a lot of you people super duper happy. Next up, Freddybabes. He is from Gwent, and he's a professional Gwent player who's won quite a few tournaments. See that ring on his hand right there in the picture? That's from a tournament. He's a streamer for Complexity, and he's been enjoying Artifact, so he hopes to compete in this game. Next up is Huguenard. He is from Magic the Gathering, MTG. He's a professional MTG player, and he hopes to also play Artifact professionally. He's big on spontaneous adventures and fine dining, and he calls himself a nerd with flair. And he does look like one, because look at that hair. Alright, next up we have Luckbox. You probably know him as Cifka. He is a Hearthstone player, and he's thinking of using the gaming name Luckbox. He's a card game enthusiast, he's a streamer, and he's based in Prague. Next up we have Melo. He is from Magic the Gathering. He's played Dota 2, and he too loves Artifact. He told me to put a Delver of Secrets, so I'm not sure which secrets he's talking about, but that's what he wanted me to put. So next up is Swim. He is from Gwent. He's a streamer, and he has played a lot of Dota 2 in the past, apparently. And last but not least is Wifecoach. Her main game is Artifact, and she told me that her family and gaming are the two things that she loves the most and spent all her time with. Isn't that so adorable and sweet? Alrighty, so for this video, we're going to cover 6 topics. For 3 to 5, there were additional cards that were revealed that they haven't given their input on, but I will. So here we go. We're going to go over how many copies of Steel Strength we would put in a constructed deck, how many we would put in a drafted deck, and then which 4-mana green cards we think are better than Steel Strength, which cheaper cards we think are better than Steel Strength, and which more expensive cards we think are better than Steel Strength, and then the overall rating. Alrighty, let's go. So in a constructed deck, I kind of cheated here because Huguenard answered 0 to 3. It was supposed to just be 1 to 3, but he just put 0 to 3, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have to put that answer, I'm going to answer that as well. I think everyone else would have answered that too. But here you can see most people just put 0. There are several cards out there that are probably stronger to put into your deck. Swim said not in a top tier duo color deck, but he would consider putting 2 in a mono green deck. Melo said he'd maybe put in 1. So I haven't made a constructed deck in a while, so I'd have to revisit thinking this. Second, how many copies of this card would be put in a drafted deck? So if you're not familiar with the terms, constructed is when you prepare a deck from, whatever limits, if there are any limits that they put, and you can prepare a deck. Drafted, it's usually when you have like packs of cards, you open up the packs, and then you pick, 2 cards, you pass it along and such. So there's more randomness and luck involved in drafting decks. So that's why you might use some cards you wouldn't normally use in a constructed deck while you're drafting. So the most popular answer was 1. Wifecoach said she usually just has 1, if ever, rarely 2. is what she said. The interesting thing is what came second after one copy was that Luckbox and Swim seem to be open to having more than 3. Luckbox said up to 10 in extreme cases. I'm not sure what that game would look like, and I'm really interested to see a game like that, and I really wonder if that has happened, but I haven't had the chance to ask him, so perhaps we can tweet at him and ask him if that's happened. Alright, and Sim said he would run every copy he can find, so again, I'm not sure how many is the max that he's actually run. I would maybe put in 2, because although I'm super happy when I see this card in draft, and I get excited because it makes me feel super sneaky. It's like, haha, I've turned the tables around, I'm saving a unit and killing one of yours. But yeah, I like some creeps a lot more than this as well, so yeah. And Hefeklimpen puts 3 max, so probably depends on what's already in the deck. So for the coming topics, please keep in mind that I told them to kind of think of it as a vacuum, and maybe in answering these questions, pretend that they haven't drafted any cards yet. So, like, the answer would actually vary while you're drafting. There are a lot of factors that you need to consider. The colors, the type of card that you have, their mana cost, their interaction with each other. So, these answers aren't really set in stone. So let's see. 4 mana green cards picked over Steel Strength. So we would all pick Satyr Duelist over Steel Strength. I'm just briefly going to go over this chart, but I'm going to show you the cards and then discuss them so that if you're not familiar with them, you'll understand why. Followed by Solomene's Favor, which Wifecoach says she'll put in if she has many large mana cost cards, and then Selfish Cleric, and then not too many votes on the other 4 cards. So let's take a look. 4 mana green cards picked over Steel. So Satyr Duelist it starts off as a 3/5, 3 attack, 5 health card, but as you can see, the card gets modified with +2 attack after the combat phase. So the attack just keeps on growing, and if they don't kill it off, like, it just keeps hitting harder and harder. So it's like one of those cards that if someone abandons the lane, or if they've used up their mana and they have no way of blocking you, you can just drop this baby down and it's going to deal a lot of damage for, at least a couple of rounds or something if you're lucky. And that's why all of us would probably go for this card. Solomene's Favor and Selfish Cleric got 2 votes. Solomene's Favor, as you can see, it's an improvement. So you can put it for one of your towers, and that tower has +2 mana. So it helps you play bigger cost cards. And Selfish Cleric, it fully heals itself after the combat phase. So it basically just constantly kills and blocks regular melee creeps. And then next after that, we got Active Defiance, which modifies allied creeps with +2 attack and +1 armor. So it got 2 votes over that. It's like, you just don't know how many creeps you're going to have in your deck in the first place, and then you don't know how many creeps you're going to have alive in the lane. So for a 4-cost card, like, sometimes you'd rather just pick, like, a really powerful spell or, like, a good creep. So I guess that's why I didn't get that many votes. Next, moving on to the other cards that didn't get many votes would be Defensive Bloom. So Defensive Bloom summons 2 Rose Leaf Walls, which you can see over here. It's a 0/8 creep, basically. It's a wall, but it's a creep. And it looks really weird and maybe even bad, but it's actually pretty good in terms of blocking, and as well as trying to help develop your board to go wide. Because one issue you have, like trying to go wide and have enough units to eventually hit the tower, is that all of your units keep dying. But Roseleaf Wall can survive quite a bit, so it's actually not a bad card. It's just, most of us would pick Steel Strength over this. if we didn't have any of either one yet. And only one person said they'd pick Smeagol Blacksmith over Steel Strength. The play effect is basically when you play the card, this happens. It modifies a random allied hero with +1 armor. I'm not a fan of this card. I do not pick this card in draft unless like I really need green creeps for some reason. Yep, and no one would go for Altar of the Mad Moon over Steel Strength. Okay, moving on. Next. Oh, wait. Other revealed 4-mana cards that I did not ask them about was Home Field Advantage and Restoration Efforts. So I will talk about these two. I think I would still pick Steel Strength over both of these. First of all, Home Field Advantage. Before the action phase, so before anyone gets to do anything in the lane, this thing pops out and then it disarms a random enemy unit for that round. It can be anything. It can disarm a creep or disarm a hero. And what disarming does, it doesn't silence it. Like, you can still cast spells. Like, if it disarms like a black hero, you can still cast black spells, but that hero doesn't attack, basically. Or that creep, whatever it disarms, doesn't attack. The thing is, it's like really random, as well as it's an improvement, so it can be removed. And I used to kind of like it before, but like the randomness, like, I don't know, irritates me quite a bit. I'd like something a bit more concrete that can definitely make a huge game-changing move, which is what Steel Strength could possibly do. And for Restoration Effect, it heals your tower for 8. I mean, there's a 7-cost creep that heals your tower for 7 and is also a 7/7 creep, and I think all of us like that better than this. I don't think it's like a very defensive, like, last minute, I'm trying to survive play. And generally the way I like to draft my decks is not like, I need to be careful, like I want to have some defensive stuff in there. I like to have a more offensive deck. An offensive deck that can also defend, kind of. So that's why I would not pick these two cards over Steel Strength, and I feel like most of the others probably wouldn't. Okay, next one. So cards that are cheaper than Steel Strength that we would actually pick over it, and there are actually quite a few. The first 4 are really popular: Mist of Avernus, Unearthed Secrets, Remusk Blessing, Rebel Decoy, and not so many votes on the others. So let's go check it out. Oh, okay. Ready? So Mist of Avernus, it modifies allies with +1 attack before the action phase. This improvement is insane. If you get a round 1, it is almost something tilting for your opponent, that they feel like they've lost all hope and like there's nothing they can do. Well, obviously there's something that they can do, but it just, it's very demotivating for them. It's a very strong card. All of us would take Unearthed Secrets. It's basically an improvement that you get to draw a card after the combat phase if your tower gets hit. So when you're in a lot of games, you're focusing more in 2 lanes. Not to say that you've completely abandoned one of the other lanes, but you're like investing less, maybe just fending off the attack in the 3rd lane. And in that case, when you put this Unearthed Secrets there, that almost guarantees you an extra card every round. So it's like, yeah, my tower is getting hit, but I'm drawing a card. And being able to choose from more cards or draw the more like important or stronger cards, it's game changing. Yeah. Remusk Blessing. Choose a lane, modify allies in that lane with +3 health. So this is a really strong card. You can save heroes, you can save units, and it modifies them. So if you heal them later on, they have a higher cap for their health. It's great, especially if you get to play it on more than one hero, 2 to 3 heroes. Just suddenly you've got extra, 3 health on each of them. And then we have Rebel Decoy here, which is a creep. 2/3 stats, but its active is pretty strong. You get to swap it with another ally. So sometimes you can play this to save a hero that you really need to stay in the lane and not die. Sometimes you can use it to get a hit on the tower and win the game, you know? It's maybe they have nothing else to play. You play this, you swap it, and you finally have enough damage to kill the last tower that you need to kill. So these are very strong cards. These are the less popular, cheaper cards that we most of us wouldn't pick over Steel Strength. Wool Martyr is popular, but actually I kind of like it because its death effect is it modifies allies with +1 attack and 1 health. I don't know why I just called it popular, but I do quite like it. It's just I wouldn't pick it over Steel Strength. And then there's Path of the Dreamer, which gives your tower +3 regen until the end of the round for every green card you play. I don't know. This card, I haven't seen it been played a lot. I've had to play it once when I didn't have many green cards. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like the best. Again, it's like very defensive. It's a card that you have in your deck kind of regenning instead of attacking or doing more things. Then you have Iron Branch Protection, which gives any unit in a lane +3 armor until the end of its next combat phase. So it's temporary, and then you never know if putting that is actually going to have any effect. So you probably want a card that has a more definite impact. And then you have Stars Align, which gives your tower +3 mana this round, but then it costs 1 mana. So what you're doing is just kind of putting +2 to what you have overall. So these are the cards that we probably wouldn't pick over Steel Strength. Moving on. Now, then I asked which more expensive green cards would you pick over Steel Strength? Because there are some cards that we wouldn't pick over Steel Strength, even though they cost more, and you think, oh, they cost more, so maybe it means they're a lot better, but that's not always the case, especially if you already have a lot of more expensive cards. So, the most popular one was Intimidation, followed by Divine Purpose, then Revtel Convoy, and then Corrosive Mist. Alright, so let's look at these cards. Most popular, Divine Purpose. It modifies a unit with damage immunity. So basically, the unit cannot die unless it is condemned. And it's pretty invincible, except for if your unit already has low HP, say you have 1 HP, right? And it also has an accessory, like some kind of cloak, right? So the cloak is actually giving you 4 HP. So if you remove the cloak, your unit is dead. So a way to kill a unit that has Divine Purpose, that's damage immunity on it, is to use Corrosive Mist, this other card on the right, and condemn all of the units, the equipped equipped items, and then with items gone, and then it dies. That actually happened to me. I thought my unit was invincible, and I totally forgot that, hey, it actually is just surviving because of the item. Anyway, Intimidation is a 5-cost green card spell that moves a unit into another lane. It can be a hero, it can be a creep, it can be yours or the enemy's. It's a funny card to see in play, and I mean, I've put it in some decks before. You know, the uncertainty of not knowing where the random unit's going to go isn't the best, but if you're looking to kind of end the game anyway, and you just need to focus on that one lane, then it's not bad, unless you're really having a hard time defending one of the lanes and you accidentally send something off over there. And tied with Intimidation is Revtel Convoy, which is starts off as a 0/20 creep, but the attack changes depending on how much gold you have. So for example, if in lane 1 you have like 0 gold, it doesn't attack for anything. But if you gain gold from lane 1, and you have one of these in lane 2, then it has some attack then. It's kind of good at, defending for a while. Can take a couple of hits from a strong hitting hero or creep. So there's that. And then you have Corrosive Mist over here that I kind of talked about, which is it condemns all equipped items. The thing about this card, which is why like only 2 of us would pick this card over Steel Strength, is it condemns all equipped items, not just your enemy's equipped items, all of them, so even yours. So when you play this card, it's like you need to ask yourself, is it worth it? If I'm putting this in my deck because I'm afraid I'm going to be so far behind that when I play this, I'm going to get so much value out of it, maybe there's something wrong with my deck. So, I don't know. I mean, I've seen the card played. It's funny to play it, but I guess we prefer Steel Strength over it overall. So, there were some other 5+ mana green cards that I didn't ask them about because I don't think they were revealed at the time. So, I will talk about them. You have Champion of the Ancients, Roseleaf Rejuvenator, Emissary of the Quorum, Thunderhide Pack, and Thunderhide Alpha. Excuse me. I don't think that many of us are fond of Champion of the Ancients. The play effect, basically, it can be bigger than 2/6, and it can even have cleave, but then it depends on how many units are there on the board. And if there are already that many units on the board against you, if you don't have enough units blocking it, it's, what is that? But I think I prefer Roseleaf Rejuvenator over Champion of the Ancient simply because of the heal on the tower and the guaranteed fact that you're gonna get 7/7 stats out of it. Emissary of the Quorum is an amazing card. It is a scary card to play against. It has a cooldown of 1 round, so every single round when you activate it, it modifies all of your allies in that lane with +2 attack and 2 health. So if you're playing against this, it gets really hard to try to kill off whatever you're facing in that lane. But if you're not in that lane, like, oh no, like they're gonna run me down and get my 2 towers in this one lane. I'm pretty sure that for these 4 on the right, they'd pick over Steel Strength, most likely most people. Maybe even the big, like, Champion of the Ancient, just because it's a big creep. And when you're drafting, you never know what other big creeps you're going to get. Thunderhide Pack, I think, is better, at least in my opinion, than Thunderhide Alpha. Simply because games sometimes don't even get to 9 mana. But also the siege element over here is very key. Like, there's no point to have a Thunderhide Alpha if none of the damage is going through. But with 6 siege going through, like at least 2, 3, maybe 4 times, you finally get through to the tower. So Thunderhide Pack, Thunderhide Alpha, definitely would pick those. So, the overall rating, funny enough, is 3.14 from the 7 of us. 4 of us gave 3.5, 2 gave 3, and then 1 gave 2. So it's a pretty strong card. I like playing it because it makes me feel sneaky. It's not really the best card out there, and it definitely, there's a lot of things you need to consider before you play it. Thanks for joining me today, and if you have any questions about this card, any of the cards I mentioned, or about Artifact at all, feel free to ask. Happy to help.